Welcome, everyone. This is the ninth episode of the Entrepreneurs series. And today's episode, we are going to be talking about the science to profit, unlocking the investment potential in photonics. I'm Alejandro Dominguez. I work for FundingBox, and today I have Mike Richardson as well. But before introducing him, I would like to say a few words about the Photonpreneur series and Photon Hub project. The Photon Hub project is a project funded by the European Commission and seeks to boost the competitiveness and uptake of photonics technologies across Europe. If you are a company innovating in photonics and would be interested in grant funding and technical support, business and investment readiness coaching support, training or access to advanced research centers, or one of the key highlights of our program, which is the exclusive online investor days. These are dedicated sessions providing our beneficiaries with a platform to pitch their ideas and connect directly with potential investors. It's a great opportunity to showcase your vision and secure the funding your business deserves. So remember, our next cutoff date for that is October the 4th, 2023. So don't miss out on this opportunity. And just a few words about this Photonpreneur series. The Photonpreneur series, as the name suggests, has been designed to share fundraising tips and best practices for those exploring, designing, and launching companies in link with the science and technology of light, meaning photonics. So without further ado, I'm delighted to kick off by welcoming Mike Richardson. Mike, I will say a few words about you, and then I'll let you correct me if I said something wrong. So Mike is an international deep technology advisor and connector whose extensive network spans across the realms of quantum, photonics, AI, medical, and defense technology. He has an exceptional understanding of agile manufacturing, and he excels in orchestrating seamless international manufacturing operations. However, his expertise does not stop there. He also offers strategic guidance to C-level decision makers, empowering organizations with invaluable insights. He's passionate about driving innovation and progress in the deep technology landscape, and Mike actively serves with multiple public agencies dedicated to analyzing and reviewing large-scale deep technology projects. He's committed to fostering growth in the industry, and it goes beyond his professional engagement. Mike wholeheartedly supports the deep technology community and readily extends his expertise to mentor startups, leaving an indelible impact through empowering young entrepreneurs at vibrant hackathons. Among his many talents, Mike shines as an accomplished public speaker, championing the photonics industry with fervor. His compelling, persuasive presentation captivate audiences worldwide, as we have seen, advocating for the tremendous potential and opportunities inherent in the photonics domain. So welcome, Mike. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you kindly. I mean, there's not much I can add to that, Alejandro, except that all of this energy that I have directly comes from the photonics industry, an industry that I've found to be incredibly welcoming. So I've built two startups in photonics, and one is folded, but one still exists, Photonic Insights, performing research activities here in Berlin. So like a lot of this knowledge that I have, I developed, let's say during the past 5 years, during my journey of building Photonic Insights. And why I have this extensive knowledge is directly due to the photonics community and how welcoming it is. So really this mention of Photon Hub, if you want to get into the industry, you definitely want to check out Photon Hub. If you like what I'm doing, and if you've seen my growth, it's directly as a part because of support like agencies like Photon Hub, Photonics 21, Alejandro, our event at Laser World of Photonics. So exactly. Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and I am honored to be here and honored to share information that will help anyone who's looking to get into the most exciting industry in the world, and that's photonics.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. I'll say just a few words about myself. My name, as I said before, is Alejandro Dominguez. I have been involved with photonics for more than 8 years as an engineer, then more in the industry. I was working with optical fibers and sensors, so I have also some sort of a vision of how this industry looks like. a little bit less broad as yours, Mike, but I hope we can have a nice discussion today, also based on your experience. So first, I would like you to say a few words because you are connected or working for an organization which is called Optech BB in Berlin. So
Yes.
um, uh, tell us a bit of the mission of Optech BB and your role there.
Well, okay, I have two roles there. One is a senior project manager, so that means actually getting the work done. But the other is a senior network manager. So what Optech BB is okay in your it's what we call a cluster. So it's a structure that we have in Europe because we have over 150 members, right, working in photonics, from research agencies to large enterprises to SMEs. How do they communicate? How do they share information? How do they find research partners? They come to us, Optech BB. So we serve our entire membership looking for opportunities. And that requires that we need to traverse various elements of photonic technologies, whether it's lasers, manufacturing, substrates, optics, right? We have to touch everything. So in essence, our job at Optech BB is to open up opportunities for our membership in Brandenburg, Berlin, and in the world.
Great. Sounds awesome. And I know you're doing it quite successfully. So that's actually that's actually great. So today's topic is from science to profit. So I would like to have a few words to those who are nowadays driving all the major breakthrough innovations we see and enjoy, which in most of the cases originate from groundbreaking scientific achievements led by researchers, and many times for them, the jump from the idea to the market is not only not straightforward, well, generally it never is, but often scary. And as a consequence, many innovations end up in just a paper or even worse, in a drawer, right? So
Yes.
I would like to first acknowledge the importance of their work, and second, encourage them to take that leap forward and try. And you have you have you have some career, you have done some work. You said you have two startups, or you started two startups, one of them is already folded. What would you say to them? What would you say to this people that are driving this innovation nowadays and are potentially considering, taking this chance?
Well, first of all, take the chance, take a deep breath, be ready for unpredictability, and then relish that and take the chance. And if you do not have the knowledge, find those that do. So I appeal to researchers because, as you mentioned, it is heartbreaking when I go into research institutions and I see posters on the wall and I think, that's a business. That's a business. Why is it languishing? And I'll speak to the researchers and they're afraid of the business world. Really, and I think that's a legitimate fear because they've really had to focus on developing, getting their PhD, right? That requires hyper focus. So how are you going to shift from working on the optical bench, let's say, to managing profit and loss statements or giving pitches in, for fundraising, right? Well, what I would
Yeah.
say is don't be afraid of that. What you can do is find a partner. So when let's say you're in your master's level or bachelor's level and you're a lab assistant, at that time, start looking for your colleagues at university or friend in your circle of friends that are business savvy, and find those individuals that are business savvy that also have a love of science, right? So don't think that you have to transform yourself into some hyper entrepreneur, okay? Don't let that stop you. Find the partner and cultivate that relationship. But the most important thing is to find that partner that loves the science, right? Not a partner that says, well, I do business and I don't need to know anything about the tech. That's never going to work out. Okay.
That's
Yet
interesting.
also manage your expectations as well, that you have someone who has a business degree. Look, they're not going to be able to, they might not understand Beer's laws, right? They might not be able to work through some of the equations. However, they will understand principles of light, principles of optics, basic physics, basic chemistry. It's your job to educate them and excite them.
That's amazing. I should have met you a long time, a long time ago when I was doing the PhD. So you would have encouraged me to take that chance. Yeah, I fully agree. And often the work that you're doing on the optical bench, as you said, is more it's frightening to move forward also because of the challenges that this industry and this sector has, right? So um, this is the second topic. So in my experience, when you are trying to, there are some few people that take the chance, and often there are also fewer that succeed. Of course, this is natural, but this is a very specific deep tech, right? So it needs a lot of investment. It needs a lot of capital, and it
Yes.
also takes time. So um, what would you say to this entrepreneurs, or this potential entrepreneurs, or people that are thinking on making or changing into entrepreneurs? What would you say to them that in terms of the challenges that they're going to face? Like, you could look back into your experience and say, okay, I would have liked to know this when I started. Like, so this is a particular sector, and you know it quite well. So, what would you suggest them to do when thinking to start this?
Okay, first of all, it's the time span. So, like when I entered into the startup world, I was all caught up with the, startup mania,
Yeah,
2016, 2017 that was hitting us in Europe, and you would see these quick exits. And so, for some reason, that was in my head that, oh, I could build this startup working with spectroscopy for agricultural products, right? And
yeah,
that somehow I would be able to get investment in a year and flip out in 3 years, right? And like, oh, I would be one of those people. Wrong, wrong, wrong. So you need to first adjust your expectations and realize anything with deep tech and hardware, it's a 7-year journey. Okay.
yeah,
Be
yeah,
ready for 7 years. That's number one. So be ready for that and realize that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And you need to give yourself breaks. Number two, diversify your income sources immediately. Really, before you go into this journey, let me say, as an example, right? If you're a PhD researcher, okay, start working on project reviews. This saved my life practically when I was, I still am a project reviewer for EIT Health and for the European Commission.
mhm,
Um, it takes time to get into that community, but there is no better time to start than now. Why do you do this? Because it provides side income, and side income that is within your vertical, right? So let's say if your side income is a plumber, that could be great. I'm not knocking that, but that's not going
yeah,
to keep you focused on your journey. However, if your side income is project reviewing, and there are a lot of opportunities, one, it exposes you to technology, it opens your mind, and it provides side income, because during this journey you're going to have multiple points where you're wondering, how am I going to pay the rent? So be
yeah,
ready for these, like, so that instead of panicking, like, I wish I would have known that at the beginning, right? I developed these as I went along, and now they're serving well. But if I would have known that at the beginning, I would have really lined up and like planned my revenues and what I can do for side income. And that's also something to know with your startup as well. Think of, one, you have a long-term journey, but what can generate cash flow quickly? And I'm going to be
yeah,
like, it may be silly. It may be something like you may have a great logo and great t-shirts. Okay.
mhm,
And this is where, when you have your business partner, right? Like, hey, what else can we do? Can we get paid engagements to speak? Right? What about the IP we're developing? The reason you need to do this is because, let's say you get investment. Okay. It's never sign a check and it goes into the bank account the next day, as you know.
yeah.
Okay. So you need to be ready for that. So I hope that's not too long of an
No,
answer,
no,
but
that's
really
fine.
be ready, develop side income immediately, because what that's going to do is, like, look, you're going to be older in this industry, right? It means you might want to have a family. Maybe you do have a family and you're starting it. It gives you a cushion to protect yourself from interpersonal difficulties that will be inevitable as a result of starting a deep technology startup and waiting on others, right? So that it gives you some sense of control. And the other one is, be ready to rest. Look at that 7 years and think, in 3 years, no matter where I'm at in this journey, I'm taking a 2-week reset and budget for it, because that will serve as an oracle that will power you through, give you that extra energy to make it through a
Yeah,
difficult situation, because difficult situations are guaranteed. Now,
Yeah,
as
for
I
sure.
say this, I've worked in the corporate world. Don't think it's better saying, I'm done with this startup and I'm going corporate. Believe me, there's a whole other set of challenges. So also, know that, but 7 years, be
Yeah,
ready
this is
for a 7-year
important.
journey. Yes.
Yeah, this is important. This is well, thanks for that, because it's, and when you hear advices from people here and there, you tend to miss the real framework. Like, give me something tangible. So it's gonna be long. I probably need a lot of capital, but you said it. Don't expect anything less than 7 years. This is already preparing people to what's to come. And on the other hand, I really like the idea of the side incomes. Of course, it's, everyone would say, yeah, of course, this is a no-brainer. It's quite obvious. It's quite obvious. But then, as a researcher, I think you're biased to aim to the very best. So in a way, this is a humble step.
Yes.
You say, okay, let's be realistic. I'm gonna need to survive until I have my minimum viable product, and this is a hardware minimum viable product. This is gonna need some money and some time. But what am I gonna do in the meantime? And for sure, if you don't have peace of mind, if you don't have a healthy environment, whether with health in general, physical health, this is not going to happen. Or if it's happening, it's going to end up pretty bad. So then this is a great piece of advice that, think of other ways of getting money. And this one about the project reviews, it is also interesting from another point of view. We shouldn't obviously dismiss the fact that there is the private money. There are potential investors that might come one day, but you need to have something ready to show them before they chip in. But before that, we are well located in Europe, and we have some funding mechanisms that are there for us to use. And as a researcher, if you are involved as a reviewer, as you did, you not only get into this environment, but you also start learning, and you train yourself on what is really interesting, and you reshape your mind, and you
Yes.
probably are better prepared to apply for those funding opportunities. So it's a slow entry process. You first see what makes sense for the others, and you see what is a good review, what's a bad review, and what others are applying for. And then you can think, okay, maybe I'm suitable for this. You apply for that, and this helps you survive in these initial phases and avoid this valley of death, this famous valley of death.
Absolutely. And it gives you a feeling of empowerment, because that's really important. Like that, because look, there's a lot of external forces that are going to be operating on your enterprise. But this little thing, which turns into a big thing, the project review, right? You see what works, you see what doesn't. You learn from other people's mistakes without making them yourself.
Yeah.
And you may find like a completely different application for what you are developing based on this. You may like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that that was a need. Oh, I can adjust what I am, my enterprise, and serve that need. And you would not find that at that deep of a level in deep technology by being in the commercial realm. Once you're in that commercial realm, you've already gone through project reviews, right? This is where you can really get to that TRL 0 and 1 to find something, and maybe find a niche where your product that you're developing can fit into research, right? So there's just so many benefits from that. And plus, I love science, okay? Especially if
Yeah.
it's in a interdisciplinary, right? Like I do a lot of work with medical technology. Well, there's a lot of photonic sensing,
Yeah, definitely.
in medtech. But then you start learning about what's needed in medtech, these processes. So yeah, absolutely. Plus, it's fun, and you never know that. And another thing is that I would add is that there is no failure. Okay, now this can be different with different cultures, but if you start this, you have not failed. There are different outcomes. Yet there is no failure because you are learning. It's a constant lesson that you are learning. So let's say your company folds, your company doesn't go public, you don't get this big exit. Well, those are outside measures that really don't matter to what you're doing. Have you learned? Have you grown? Have your actions stimulated other businesses? Look at where you started and look at where you're getting out, even though there really isn't an exit like with this hardware,
Yeah,
like it's a long-term journey, but never to think that you fail. That you started on this journey means you are a success.
that's great. And I really like the point of keeping your mind open to different fields and to have this interdisciplinary mindset. This is, I think, it's key also for researchers. Most of the major breakthrough, they come when you are at the cutting edge of whatever you're working on. You're working on something that is really narrow, but then you look at some different field and you see some
Yes,
similarities, and you see, okay, maybe I could do something here, right? And this is where the cool, innovative applications arise. And for that, you need to keep your mind open and start looking to the side and not only to the front and move forward to what you're working. But
absolutely.
what do you think? Because you are witnessing a lot of different technologies, and you said, for example, medtech. Okay, this is a broad question, and there's no right or wrong answer for sure. But in your opinion, what are the sectors that will probably witness or that these innovators should look at to try and innovate, right? To try and provide some yeah, some new business idea, some new business company.
Applied spectroscopy for medtech. Okay, there are many research projects that have been launched in Europe, and that as the spectrographic instruments improve, that's the realm of photonics, whether it's a sensor, whether it's a fiber probe, that there's a lot of medical problems that can be solved. Whether it is there's a project called Inspect, I remember reviewing 3 or 4 years ago, for real-time characterization of breast cancer tissue with a minimally invasive methodology, basically inserting a fiber probe instead of a very horrible surgery, right?
Mhm.
That's one. Spectrographic analysis of, let's say, of bodily fluids real time. Think of this, that when we do things in photonic, you can get a quick result. So anywhere in the healthcare that replaces wet chemistry that takes time, that you can solve the problem with photonics, primarily with spectroscopy, is something that will be of use as we are moving forward. That's one area. Another area is measurement, precision measurement in industry with
Mhm.
photonic sensors, right? That the ability to use, let's say, newly developed LiDAR modules for automotive, right? That's a photonic development. Well,
Yeah.
where does this go beyond automotive and mobility, right? Where else can you use these ultra precise real-time measurements? I saw one company in Germany, for example, that makes this system that you're able to walk, using these types of sensors,
Mhm.
right? So remember, you don't need to be in the sensor. What I'm describing this is that there's an entire vertical there, right? That you can go through buildings and get a 3D model quickly. Plug that into your CAD software, right? So what do we have here? We have all the technology behind the sensor. Then the other thing is the software layer, because software needs data. Photonic devices generate data,
A
right?
lot of it.
So this, if
Exactly.
I'm not rambling too much, what I mean to say is that, like, look at your photonic device as a data generation device. So you need your partners on the software end. Software needs novel data to process in order to deliver outcomes, actionable results. And photonic sensors provide this. Security and defense, this is a growing area, and the full realm of photonic technologies are needed there. And also keep in mind that within this dual use sector, that's where technologies will begin to incubate, but then they will spill over into the commercial sector. So let's
Yeah,
say
indeed.
free space optical communication. Okay, laying fiber is expensive, right? It's nice to be able to have nodes using free space optical communication. Spectrographic sensing, what's in the ground, what's in that tree. Let's say mine removal in Ukraine, one example, 30% of their landscape is mined. It's enormous. It's a piece of land the size of the Netherlands, I believe. Think of that, all mine. What, the advanced technologies will be needed to stand off, mean detect from a distance, where are these explosive devices, right? So how does that translate to, let's say, commercial? Well, if I can detect explosive devices, I can detect other things in agriculture, right? Because it means I'm looking for a chemical signature. Perhaps I can predict fertility better, fertility of the soil. Space sciences, right? Okay, all of your satellites, even your nanosatellites, have some type of photonic component. Why? Because light is resistant to radiation. Things that work with light, even computational elements, right? When you put them into space, they're resistant to the radiation that electrons are not resistant to. So it's like, wow, if you can do something with photonics that replaces something with electronics, that has a huge value proposition, and that will be paid for in commercial or dual use satellite uses. Another area is that realize that photonics is the gateway to quantum. The whole quantum industry is exploding right now. However, in order to get to those qubits, you're using photonic systems throughout that value chain, and that photonics, quantum are intertwined, and look for the juncture between for like an area of growth. Now, let me add one more thing. Now, we've got to make all these devices, right? How do we do it? Well, making the substrates, okay? Epitaxy, materials science that drives the ability to, let's say, for a photonic integrated circuit, this is something that just blows me away. Like, not even fiber, right? That we have a two-dimensional structure with something called a waveguide that's able to channel, right, light on a two-dimensional surface, right, on a waveguide, okay? These materials, silicon nitride, etc., all have optimizations. So if you're just in that materials area, you're able to grow crystals. You find some way to improve growing crystals, some way to improve the process of creating silicon nitride wafers, let's say with lower energy costs, with a better environmental footprint. So there's a lot of opportunities. And let me go to one very specific to finish up: data centers. Our conversation is possible today because of photonics, because we have photonic integrated circuits in those data centers, shuttling data back and forth. You don't generate the amount of heat with light that you do with electrons. And that if we did not have these photonic integrated circuits being used to communicate between the server racks and ultimately to the trunk lines, right, for fiber communication and these photonic integrated circuits, these data centers would melt from the heat. Our exchange right now would not be possible if it's not for photonics. And this can always improve. So Alejandro, I hope that's a good survey, at least what I'm thinking about right now for areas for people to get involved with. And then you just look at that entire value chain. Do I make simulation software? Do I have an epitaxial process? Or do I have an assembly methodology? Okay, here's another one that's very important for people to know. We've been building these photonic devices for years in the lab with something called packaging. You have something generally called a butterfly package if people aren't familiar with this. Well, this is a very expensive way to take this integrated circuit, and then you have micro manipulation tools that are able to add the wires to the interposers to the fiber couplers. That the work on automating these processes so photonic devices can scale, if you develop a breakthrough there, that is going to affect the entire industry and you will do well. And I'd like to add something about Photon Hub, that one of Photon Hub's partners, Tyndall in Ireland, is a world leader in these scaling technologies. So like this is like reach out and get involved with Photon Hub to learn about these opportunities where you can plug yourself into these expanding verticals. Alejandro.
Yeah. No, it's amazing, and you gave a super comprehensive answer. I think you touch upon very critical points. One of them is quantum, and it's true that probably quantum is a very trendy word right now. It's all over, and it's going to be a major trend, and it's going to drive a lot of investment for sure in the upcoming years. And it's all driven in the majority, on its majority, it's driven by photonics, and this is something that it's up to us. It's our duty raise the awareness and the community in the general public, to make them know that this is enabled by photonics, and without photonics this wouldn't happen. But I would like to highlight, if you can also as well, some cases of uh, companies that are succeeding in this field. Like it comes to my mind a couple of companies that have already developed some devices and their technologies, and they are already a commercial scale, like QSide. They are from spin-off from ICFO in Barcelona or ID Quantique in Switzerland. They are succeeding with commercializing their technologies. Like, do you have any other examples? So
Oh yeah.
you have
Oh
many.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Quandela of Paris, France. Okay,
Yeah.
they have their own language. I mean, they have their own computational interface language. It's called Percival, and they use single photon source, right? And they're able to, and their quantum computational unit is able to work not at the crazy chandelier level, right? Like you don't have to immerse it in liquid helium. It will work with the standard lab available cryostat, and they're working with Quix Quantum of the Netherlands. So you have this combination that okay, so Quandela, okay, I can't remember his name, but the founder Vices, his company developed the brightest single photon source. Brightness is important when you're having to cut through all of these noise issues with quantum, and they combined with Quix in Netherlands. So Quandela has functioning quantum computational units. They are very tailored for specific tasks. That's how it is right now, just as computation was tailored for specific tasks back in 1948 to 56, 1960, right? Like these were not general purpose computers until I don't remember the name of the IBM, but I think like the first mass market mainframe was the System 360, right? That's old in the 60s.
Yeah.
So these are tailor made. So yeah. So that is one company I'm very excited about because they have working computation and it's single photon. Okay. The companies that make these single photon emitters, Toptica, Eagle Yard, right? This is a very critical component. You need to have single photons in order to drive this entanglement, right? Yeah, and so
What do
there's
you
a lot
think?
of research in this area. Not research, but there's commercial, these are off-the-shelf devices now.
Yeah.
SPADs, single photon avalanche diodes.
Yeah. And these are cases, the ones that we're mentioning, these are cases from companies that went from science to profit, right? And here there's
Valerian
also,
Gusev, excuse me. I have to
yeah.
Valerian Gusev from
Okay.
Quantel. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, directly science to business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So these are examples that you guys can check out. That just, of course, in many cases, it's also good to check off the ones that did not make it, so you can learn from others' mistakes. This is a great learning and a great tip from my point of view. But I'm thinking that these are companies that are succeeding and they are attracting a lot of investment. I know that they have recently, like in the case of QSide, they have attracted a round of Series E or Series B investment. So there is already the attention focused from the investors and also from the public authorities. But what do you think is the role of the investors here, and how do they perceive, in your case, in your opinion, how do they perceive this innovations, this breakthrough innovations, this technology? Is this photonics? Is it scary for investors when they are approaching these companies? How the companies can attract better these investors or make this more appealing for the investor to come in?
Okay, well, one, you have to realize that an investor class has been conditioned for a generation on unicorn style thinking. So you're not going to change this. Okay. So going with those that they're looking at your hardware and frankly, it's scary deep tech. Okay.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to explain it, and you need to have the case that you're able to say, look, a 3-minute pitch isn't going to work. I need an hour of your time. You need to find the way to get that hour of your time instead of trying to explain it in 3 minutes. You cannot with the technologies we're working with. You might be able to give one value case, one use case, and that might be exciting for 3 minutes, but to really get and explain why you have a breakthrough that is worthy of investment, you need to find the way to get someone to sit down for an hour. I think that's your target. Instead of going around and hitting for 3-minute pitches, or even, you know, a 10-minute pitch like Tech Tour does, or like literally what FundingBox was doing in Munich. I mean, like that's how it, you know, you need to have that type of time scale. So that's one thing. You need to find a way to convince the investor that you're worth more time to have initial evaluation. The other thing is that you need to think about, how do you de-risk this investment, right? That, look, certain levels of investors may want to be out of this after 3 years, but you're on a 7-year journey. Well, how do you make sure or de-risk so that investor is confident that when they choose to exit, they get return on their investment? This means continuously thinking about how you de-risk the investment for the investor. I will go point to IP. This is deep technology, and the idea that you have a patent, right? One, and you sit on it for 3-4 years without reevaluating it. You need to have within your thoughts continual evaluation of your IP portfolio. Budget for this, because as you advance in TRL level, you don't know, right, that your IP may all of a sudden be a critical part of some other greater process. And that your TRL advancement, let's say you go from 3 to 5, that let's say this patent, just for simple math, is worth 1 million euros at TRL 3. At TRL 5, this patent may be worth 50 million. There are cases where this exists. This is not an odd case. However, if you're not continually surveilling this, how are you able to message to your investors that you're de-risking, right? Also mention, if you make investments in equipment, be ready to speak to how much it costs. Let's say, okay, investor, if we needed to liquidate tomorrow, what would you get in return? So why I say this is not to think about liquidation, but to give an investor assurance that if I invest 1 million, I'm taking a risk that this enterprise completely collapses. I may still get my million back. I may get 500,000 back. It will not go and just disappear for nothing.
Yeah, I think
That's
it's
the great thing. De-risk, and let the investor know that you are mindful of de-risking and that you care about their money. So that means kind of going back a little old-fashioned, watching your marketing spend, watching frivolous spend, and communicating that to the investors so they know that yes, there's a risk, but the people I'm investing in are watching the money I've put in.
Yeah, I think the message here would be to not rest on your laurels, right? So it's not,
Absolutely.
don't relax after you get the money from the investor. You need to continuously think on the value you provide. And you are highlighting 2 parts, right? The tangible and the intangible assets. So you need to continuously monitor and reevaluate the value itself that you are bringing in. So is your patent still worthy or not? Is your IP still giving you leverage and a competitive advantage, or is it not, because someone else has worked around something and they already have an offering that competes with yours? So yeah, this is a great piece of advice, I believe.
Well, it's a little bit like, let's say you have a small enterprise that you're ramping up, right? Let's say you build a small clean room facility. Are you using that 23 hours a day? Are you only using it for 1 shift? Then what do you need to do to open up that facility that someone else can use it when you are not? That's not a simple question, right? Because there may be IP there, but it's this kind of thinking. Like, okay, we're making these capital investments. We bought 2 fine tech positioning machines. Well, if they're only being used 4 hours a day, who else can use that? And that's why the science part needs to work with the entrepreneur. The science person might not be thinking about this, but the entrepreneur might say, hey, we've made this capital investment, right? Why have it sit idle? Now, let me give you an example of why it's important to think like this. This is going into microelectronics industry, but you have something called a pick and place machine. And that's this machine that basically on the PCB robotically puts the components there. Now, with one manufacturer, like many manufacturers, I'll just mention one manufacturer, Fuji, because this is one that I've worked with in the past. You have the ability to put components in one side and then the same components on the other side of the machine. Why is that? Because 20 minutes of downtime is losing money from that machine's capability. So this is what I mean, to have this thinking, like, how do you maximize that 1 million given to me by an investor? If I build a clean room and I'm using that 8 hours a day, that's nonsense. And if I'm an investor that's sitting back and like going, you know what, I'm going to learn more about photonics. I'm going to take some of those Photon Hub courses, right? Because watch out, investors start taking those Photon Hub courses, they're going to know, okay?
Yeah.
And they're going to say, hey, I just invested $1 million and you're telling me that you've got 2 people in this clean room that only use it 4 hours a day. And
Really?
why did I invest this $1 million? You get what I'm saying? So now, like,
Yeah.
if you're an entrepreneur, if you're able to address that, let's say you can say, hey, I've got to do this because it's set up in a certain way and the IP is so valuable. See this patent that we have reevaluated. I'm going back to the de-risking conversation.
Yeah. But the important aspect here, and not to scare off the potential entrepreneurs, is that they're not alone. You said it at the beginning. Partner up with someone that helps you, that has a business mindset, that has the expertise that you lack, and of course onboard them and make them love your science and understand it. This is key. But also lean on them. Ask them for advice. Even the investors, they are there not just to chip in money, but also to help you grow. And this is a hell of an advice, I believe. For all of these questions that we're raising, get
Well, let
the
me go back to
support
the
of your
investor on
network.
this. So people aren't scared. Like, that's a good point. I don't want to scare. Like, let's say
Yeah.
partner with your investor. If you go to your
Yeah.
investor and say, well, you know what? I could use some help in getting my
Exactly.
facilities further out there. And the investor goes, hey, I met this person over this conversation that was mentioning how they needed a clean room for a certain amount of time. It's a good point, Alejandro. Exactly.
Yeah.
That look for help and lean on all of those that are involved with what you're doing,
Yeah. And
especially the investor.
exactly. And there are tools available. This is actually what we're trying to do at Photon Hub from the investment point of view. So we're trying to help the entrepreneurs find this fit, and the investors are already engaged and they want to help. So this is, of course, if they're going to put money in, they want to make sure this move forward, and many of them are involved on a very intense way. That's for sure. And one point that you raised before, it's connected to this, also to the de-risking for the investors. It's about the scalability, and the scalability, and you raised it before about the photonic integrated circuits. For sure, for many of the solutions that we have nowadays, there will be a twist in the upcoming years. Well, there is already a twist happening, where photonics is substituting. You said it, for data centers. If it wouldn't be for photonic integrated circuits, we wouldn't be communicating today, and we wouldn't be able to generate the amount of data that we generate every second. And I think this photonic integrated circuits that will help optimize all of the processes and all of the performances of current electronics. It's a key aspect in the future. And the agencies and governmental institutions, they are already identifying this. And I see the example of Belgium with EMEC. They have recently invested 1.5 billion euros there. Last year, I saw an investment in Photon Delta, a partner in Photon Hub, of 1.1 billion euros from the Dutch government. So the point is, there is an obvious supply chain issue with recent Ukrainian war and the geopolitics. Europe is facing this situation that, okay, we need to foster this industry that we had somehow dormant for quite some time, and we need this scalability. And how we do that, let's move forward and let's take a lead on the photonics chips. And it is done through making use of already existing foundries that were working for the semiconductor industry. And this is great because we see that not only the investors are interested in moving this part forward, but also the public agencies and the governments are realizing this. So this is affecting everyone, of course, and it affects. So I encourage everyone to think of this aspect about the scalability. Think how their solutions can be improved by means of reducing the form factor, improving the connectivity. Why not doing photonic integrated circuit maybe for a sensor, and there are many publicly funded opportunities that will help you try this. One of it is funding.
PIXAP is one. I mean, like, for example, like when Alejandro, when we're mentioning the scaling, it's very important that you do this at the beginning. How do I make 1 million of these devices? Not everything can be that niche butterfly package, right? That someone, that a research institution is happy to pay 50,000 euros for, right? How do I make 1 million? How do I make 1 billion? How do I scale these things? And these design considerations need to be at the very beginning. So PIXAP, like I believe they're a partner of Photon Hub, European project, addresses these issues like immediately. Okay, I have this PIC design, great. Will this design work in most foundries? What process does it need? Is it something that can scale, right? And it's best to learn to make those changes before you actually do any physical fabrication.
Yeah, right.
And that's something that's really, really critical for our industry, is to think in this way. In microelectronics, we have a principle, or actually it's beyond microelectronics, design for manufacturing, right? So yes, we're basically taking something from an optical bench and shrinking it eventually into a photonic integrated circuit or some type of heterostructure, right? But everything you need to think, how is this going to be assembled? Will I always need some type of manual wire bonding process? What if I move the waveguides in a different way? What if I have different edges? Like, for example, right, different structure of ring resonator. Does that mean that I'm able to maybe have less performance, but able to build these at scale? So
Mike,
yes,
I think we have provided a nice recipe in a summarized way for our audience. I would like to make my key takeaways, right? So first of all, so those potential entrepreneurs, don't be scared. Take the chance, take that leap forward. It's worthy. As you said, there's no failure. There's always a learning process. And surround yourself with the right people, and don't be afraid of surrounding yourself with people that would complement you, and lean on them. Get their support.
Absolutely.
There are many ways of getting the support. We are also from Photon Hub. We are here to support you. So these are my key takeaways. I hope this was useful. I don't know if you have any further closing remark that you want to share, Mike?
Well, what I would say is, like, when you mentioned leaning on these resources, really take the time. Like, some of these submissions are only an hour extra of your time. That, like, look, it's not going to come to you magically. You need to invest, yet you will get great returns. And I'm really going to say something more about Photon Hub in the combination with FundingBox, right? Because my startup, Photonic Insights, actually our first funding came from FundingBox. Okay, and that take the time to apply for these programs and invest. It's a worthy investment. Let's say, even if you don't get the grant, the act of building a team and working together is invaluable as you move forward. So please take the time and take advantage of these programs. There are world experts that are not just waiting because it's their job to help you, waiting to help you because it's their passion.
Okay. I think that's a great closing remark. And so for everyone interested in following Mike's steps, remember our next cutoff date is October the 4th. So don't miss out on that opportunity. Thanks a lot, Mike. It was awesome to have you and to exchange some words.
Thank you, Alejandro. I really appreciate this and hope this message goes out to the photonics community or those that want to join us.